Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. And today we have a very special treat. We're going to do a forgotten film segment, which I love. And I have to start off by saying that I have to thank our guest for suggesting this. Thanks to Moosie Drier, who suggested the film 1941, which I happen to love. And I know Ike happens to hate. So I could not be more excited about this segment. And let's start with Moosie. Moosie, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I only suggested it because I watched this, and I love that. I love the lost or forgotten movie segment. So to be a part of it, it's an honor. I love it.
Well, let's start with why did you pick this movie?
Well, because for one thing, it's directed by Steven Spielberg. I think you may have heard of him, and it really never gets mentioned. I mean, rarely ever. 1941. Like, obviously, there's Close Encounters, there's Jaws, there's all the whatever Raiders, whatever, everything else. And I'm a big fan. If I happen to say anything, not so favorable about 1941, let me preface it with, I'm a huge Steven Spielberg fan, really going out on a limb on that one, right? Nobody on the planet can block a scene for a camera like Steven Spielberg. It's so, even in 1941, like, it's just so impressive. Like, the reason people don't see that and think about it is because they're not supposed to. And if it's done poorly, then it would be brought to their attention. But he's just so brilliant.
Well, you want to give us a little...
Also, okay, so 1941 is, if you ask the average person who's somewhat privy of, films and pop culture and Spielberg, they would likely consider 1941 Steven Spielberg's first failure, or even the word flop, I've heard, right? Let me tell you, so I've done a little bit of research and watched this movie again since I knew we were going to do this. And I stand corrected. So 1941 was made for $35 million, and it brought in $95 million worldwide. Not a failure. And so the $35 million it was made for, that's $135 million in today's standards for the year it was made. 79, was it?
Yeah, 79, yeah.
So it's not really, it's all relative. It's because it's Steven Spielberg, everyone considered it such a flop. But it is a forgotten film to many, except for you, Jonathan, of course. But you're the one. No. I'll tell you something. So since I knew we were going to do this when we scheduled this a week or so ago, I did watch the film again. I do like it a little bit more than I...
Before we get into what you like, didn't like, you want to give us a recap so we could, since you picked the film, you want to give us a little recap what it's about for people who don't know?
Oh, sure. So 1941 was written by a man named Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. And these two guys wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, just to give you perspective. Like, one of the most, arguably one of the most creative films of the 80s, right? So
Bob and the little one a few years after that too, that they were kind of successful too, that they wrote.
Oh yeah. I mean, really. So this is what intrigues me by it. You put all these ingredients: Spielberg, Gale, Zemeckis, and Milas. Who was the other?
Yeah, John Milius.
Milius.
Yeah.
And the star-studded cast, and it in many eyes, and I know it's all subjective, didn't work. So Bob Gale came up with the idea to make 1941 based on a real-life paranoia in 1942 in Los Angeles, or in the country, but primarily it was Los Angeles. there was some paranoia that Japan was going to attack Los Angeles because of our response to Pearl Harbor, us joining World War II in response to Pearl Harbor. It was many headlines had the words war nerves in it because it was a false alarm. What happened was there was a weather balloon, kind of topical these days. There was a weather balloon that we shot down, and it turns out it wasn't. It was just a weather balloon. It wasn't a enemy object in the sky, and we just sort of lost. Oh, here, this is interesting. Ike, you'll like this. I read that, found out that we sent Army soldiers to specifically protect Walt Disney Studios in 1942. They thought that was in danger or something, like Japan was, insulted by Dumbo or something at the time. So this hysteria happened for no reason. I'm sorry if that's me. I don't know if my notifications are dinging, but and so he wrote this script loosely based on that. Early on in the film, there's a scene where Belushi goes into some gas station, side of the road store that has like canned goods and stuff, and starts just stealing or stocking up on goods. And there's two old guys sitting at a table, and one of them says, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Everything. It's a farce. Nothing. It's all fake. It's all war nerves." And use the word in the dialogue, words in the dialogue, war nerves, that the media was using when they found out that it was a false alarm. And Belushi said, "Where'd you hear that?" And he points to the radio, and Belushi shoots the radio, and then keeps going like, "I'm going to fight these Japanese, enemies." So. I could go on, but Jonathan, you're the one who could probably describe. You want to describe the plot? I could do it, but you could do it better. I just know you.
There are many. One of the things that I do love with it, before I go into whether I love it or not, but I do love. It's like takes me back kind of to like it's a mad world type of thing where there are many. It's a madcap story with many different characters. We're following along with many different characters. You have Belushi, who's the pilot. We have the lookouts, the two guys on the Ferris wheel with the dummy looking out for Japanese, the dancer, wanting to dance for the USO with his girlfriend, and they're going get stuck in this USO dance. We all, along with Treat Williams as well in that. What else do we have in there? We have, Dan Aykroyd's character is a separate thing, and we also have the homeowner who they place a big anti-aircraft gun in his yard to be careful of Japanese attacking, which I've read that they did do that in several homes. So
right, Ned Beatty, yeah.
Right, we do have like around 5 or 6 different plot lines going on at once, and they all like intersect at some point or other. So so that's one of the things that I do like about it, that following all the different characters with that type of, I guess, hijinks. But I'll let we all just watched it. I will say that I have watched this many times through the years. I just watched it around Thanksgiving, and when you recommended it, I was happy because I got to watch it again now. So a couple of months later. So, but let's go into you. I don't know if you want to start with Moosie, with you, or with Ike, because I'll be the touching one, and you guys could go. So
well,
Ike, maybe.
I will jump in for a minute because we'll just bounce back and forth about our thoughts. I remember going to the theater and watching it and thinking, "Oh my God, I'm so bored. This is just so dumb. It's so dumb. How could this be so dumb? Why is it not working?" And it just fell completely flat with me, despite the amazing production value, because Moosie's observation is highly accurate. And watching it the second time, the only redeeming value in the movie for me was the actual production value and the orchestration, or the choreography of all the chaotic fights and madness that was going on with so many human beings in a scene, and tanks and cars and stunts. And he is Spielberg is the master of that. There's no doubt about it. And you can see all kinds of nods to Raiders and nods to, Temple of Doom and the opening sequence in Temple of Doom, which is kind of almost something taken right out of this movie. And just the sheer, I mean, my gosh, the sheer size and scope of the sets that were built. And then also the miniatures, the miniatures with, the P-40 Warhawk that John Belushi is flying, down Hollywood Boulevard, back and forth. I don't know how, Hollywood Boulevard's not that long, but they certainly made it look that long. But I mean, I found myself paying very much more attention to that than anything that the actors were doing and what was going on screen. I just thought, man, even the second time, I thought I would find something in it, but I just couldn't. And it's one of the, and of course it depends upon where you sit. Jonathan's happy, he loves it, he watches it over and over again, and it goes back to that whole the subjective nature of any kind of art. What's one person's trash is another person's treasure, and I will never watch this movie again as long as I live.
You're not going to keep watching it until it gets better?
No, I don't even think drunk I would find anything in it funny. Although I will say there's one line that I thought was brilliant, and it's not a outwardly ha-ha kind of line to me, but Tim Matheson plays the pilot who's getting seduced by the crazed girl who's turned on by airplanes, which is just hilarious in a sense. But he's got his wounded aircraft that John Belushi's trying to shoot down and riddles him full of bullets, and he's got to land the plane. And as he's going in for like a potential crash landing, he says, "I'm going to put this plane down, even if it's the last thing I do."
That's funny.
And I thought, you know what? That's a brilliant line. It's so ludicrous. And it's like, it's so, even in the middle of a ludicrous film, that was outrageous. And I thought, wherever that came from, to me, that was worth it.
Yeah, that's good. I have one too. I was wondering if it was going to be, I also have a favorite line in the movie. It's very early on. It's after the little wink wink scene where the swimmer from Jaws gets lifted up, right, by the submarine. And then we go in and we see the actors playing the Japanese soldiers, and they're speaking in Japanese, and we're seeing the subtitles. And one of them says I don't remember the lead-in line, but one of them actually responds something along the lines of, "Is there anything in Los Angeles honorable enough to destroy?" Something like that. Is there anything honorable to destroy in Los Angeles? And I love that line, even though I grew up in Los Angeles. I live here right now, and I love a good Hollywood wink wink to itself. When Hollywood could make fun of itself, I do enjoy that. And I did enjoy, there were a couple of things I kind of missed from whenever I saw it last this time. And I don't know, we're jumping around, but there's a little compass in the Cracker Jack box towards the end that the soldiers in the submarine, get Slim Pickens. Hey, any movie you have Slim Pickens in, coming down the road, swigging whiskey and singing a song, which is so many movies. He did that in so many movies. That part's okay for me because I enjoyed him. But the film to me was relentless, is a good word for me. Like, it just was so loud and noisy and all over the place, and characters like, oh wait, where's Treat Williams? I haven't seen him in 40 minutes, and then this guy, you know what I mean? It was just kind of all over the place. But that's what I love, the whole subjective thing about film. It is that it's not the movie's fault. It's if anything, it's my fault. You should know what you're going to see, and if it's not your brand of humor or whatever, then it's a little bit more on me than it is the film. No, the film didn't work. Even in my opinion, in general, it didn't work. Even if that were my genre, like I'm not a guy like anytime there's like a lot of hey, whoa, kind of like comedy, like well, watch it, like this physical, like kind of Three Stooges kind of deal. When that kind of comedy doesn't land on me, but I know it lands on like our good buddy Richard Horvitz loves Three Stooges and loves that. And we love to go back and forth about this kind of thing. And Jonathan loves this too. And I get it. I get that we all have our own.
Stooges, though. I actually don't like the Stooges for that, but I do love this.
Oh, okay. But you know what I mean? There's a few like that thing's gonna fall. Whoa, there's like Pratt falls and stuff like that. I feel like it's a little like the old when the lazy writing where they would just like a fruit cart would get knocked over. What all the fruit on the side of the road or in the mart or whatever. And it's like, well, the fruit cart got knocked over and people are falling over it, so I must be laughing. It's so forced. It's like it's not the intelligent comedy. I feel like it could have been there with these guys, with Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, Spielberg. I think Spielberg can do comedy. He does it, but I think he's best served when he injects comedy into his Spielberg-like films, as opposed to branding something a comedy and making a comedy, because it was just sort of all over the place. In my opinion, it was just chaotic and relentless. And I'm like, what am I supposed to focus on, and how many characters do I need to remember? So to give you a reference, just in my opinion, like I'd say like even Stripes, or Arthur is going back to old comedies, things that are a little more focused in one area. The story's not all over the place, gets my attention. Like I got bored because I didn't know what to pay attention to anymore. There was the Ferris wheel and the this, the that, and the whole. And Jonathan, you're not wrong. It's just
nobody's ever wrong when it comes to this. But see, that's
no, I disagree. I think you two are wrong, but go ahead.
Well, we expect that, but there's a thing about comedy, and that has always held true. If no one's laughing, it's not funny. And it's easily tested. It's always easily tested. And I know you've done sitcoms. I've done sitcoms. You're working on a bad sitcom when the producers and the writers in the background are going and looking around every time you say a line.
Yeah.
It's not really playing. And the hard part about a movie is you got to shoot the thing before an audience gets to see it. So, unless you're testing it somehow, with in a table read or something like that. But I just find it amazing to me that anyone would read this script and actually say, wow, that's really funny. Okay, that's really funny.
Well, as far as the actors go, I can see this movie because Steven Spielberg just came off of two of the biggest blockbusters anybody's seen in forever. So it's like, whatever he does, I want to be a part of.
Right.
But John Williams did the music, and that's the thing. Like all these people involved, you get all these ingredients, and everything but the magic shows up.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it just wasn't really, funny. But to me, so I'm not saying it wasn't funny. I'm sure
we keep qualifying that back and forth, but in terms of the box office, perhaps worldwide it did 90 million, but it only did 24 million in the US. And that's always considered a failure. When you don't make your US, because the rule of thumb is you have to make twice your box office before a film breaks even, and then you're supposedly making a profit. And so that in and of itself denotes that no, it did not do well like a Spielberg movie does. I mean, all of his other films far exceeded that, no matter what their budgets were. But but to your point also, and I was going to say that earlier, yes, the reaction is subjective. There seems to be an audience member for every movie, but this is one of those situations where all of that talent could not elevate the material. And so fundamentally, somewhere in the material, it just wasn't working. And
Right.
And again, that just goes to what the take on it is, because there were so many nods to Dr. Strangelove, Slim Pickens for one, recreating his Sergeant Kong or Kong character from that movie, with the cowboy hat and his whole, the bits he was doing in it. And yes, everyone knows I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan, and one of the fascinating details about Dr. Strangelove was Kubrick's original plan for the film. He was trying to write. He was so overwhelmed with the insanity of the nuclear arms race and the mutually assured destruction concept, that he wanted to make a serious film about it as a social commentary. And said the more he learned, he said, this is so unbelievably absurd that human beings would actually think that this makes sense to defend ourselves or take care of ourselves, that he said he just shifted gears and went into a black comedy, and which is what made it so successful and made it true social commentary, because everything was based on fact, but it was absurd. Now, see, this film had all this stuff based on real situations that occurred that on its face is absurd. But for some reason, it wasn't dark comedy they were doing. I'm not sure. It was slapstick, essentially, I think.
Farcical,
what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, or farcical. And it just didn't. There was no social commentary in it. And so I think that for me, this is just obviously me personally, that's the underlying thing that was missing for me. And I think I started to read some Wikipedia stuff and I just didn't have time to finish it. But apparently Kubrick told Spielberg that he should have made it a serious film.
Saw that.
Just the opposite of what he did, that he should have made it a serious film, because then all of a sudden it would have been, oh my God, this is about real fear and anxiety and overblowing everyone's perception of what was actually going on at the time. It's like War of the Worlds. That's the thing about War of the Worlds. You can't make that a dark comedy. That's terrifying because especially even going back to oh dear, the radio broadcast when
George Orwell, or
Sorry. Orson Welles, good guy.
Orson Welles, George Orwell.
Just doing it as a pseudo radio documentary of something that might have been actually happening, it terrified the country. That was chilling. So anyway, that's kind of what I was feeling as I was watching it. And because the thing is, man, everything in it is so well done. The performances are phenomenal. And my favorite performance is Christopher Lee. He was fantastic. And he wasn't playing it for humor. He was actually playing it really straight.
He was one of the few who actually played it straight.
And I thought that's really interesting, because he was a compelling Nazi officer, I mean, he really, or German officer, whatever it is he was speaking German the whole time, which is amazing to me always. But I didn't even realize it was him at first. It took me a little while and also I said, oh my God, that's Christopher Lee. Holy cow. So there's that. There's again a sense of inconsistency about how some of the performers were approaching their roles, and the other incredible actor who was playing the U.S. Army's military leader in the movie
Robert
theater,
Stack?
and he ended up kind of taking control of the situation.
Robert
What was his name?
Robert Stack.
Thank you. He was playing it straight also, and that just worked for me. It really worked for me.
And it was surprising me that Dan Aykroyd actually steered towards the straight delivery himself. Actually, he wasn't, the kooky. He wasn't kooky. He was, and he's Dan Aykroyd, but he played it straight, and he was good.
Yeah,
it's weird, they were coming off of. They have to go back to the time, and put context in here, and I think I'm a little bit hypocritical because now I'm going to mention Animal House and Airplane. Which is sort of along the lines of, it's not actually those are zany. I would use that word, comedies, and I actually really enjoyed those films, especially Airplane. So that worked for me. Those were, but I just think the Zucker brothers were funnier at that than Bob Gale and Zemeckis, who are geniuses in their own right. So that's the conundrum about the whole thing, is you've got these top notch people, and it fell short. And I don't know if this was it was really interesting. Boy, the cast. So this time I caught that first of all, I didn't realize Mickey Rourke was in it until I watched it this last time. And then also David Lander and Michael McKean, who were Lenny and Squiggy, were in it together. In a scene together. There's Lenny and Squiggy, and I don't know if that was a stunt, like, hey, also TV comedy people, we've got this for you too. We got a little Lenny and Squiggy, it was too much of a coincidence that those two were put together, and at the time in the 70s they were, in everybody's eyeballs. But I just thought, and I thought no one was bad in it. My old friend, who I knew for many years, Perry Lang, was in it. I thought he was good too. Do you know who he is? He was the blonde kid who was
the dancing, the Chico's friend.
Yeah. There's so many characters that. Apart from all the things that Ike and I said, Jonathan, we love it. We absolutely just. One of my faves.
Highly recommended.
No. Yeah.
But I have to ask Jonathan, okay, is this a movie that you laugh out loud at, or is it
I
just
do.
you just
I do.
you really do?
I do. I love this movie. I will say one of the things,
just love that you stand alone in this pod. Not alone. Many people love this film, I'm sure, but like
podcast, yes.
You're alone on your island, and this is my movie, my comedy by destiny.
I'm going to defend this. I'm going to die on this hill.
I love it.
I just looked at it while you guys were telling me how bad it was. I was looking how many I think there are 8 different storylines around. So I was counting out all the people. Yeah. So yes, but I don't think it's purely slapstick. I think it's also the play, and it's may not be to the par of Dr. Strangelove, but that's what I compare it to, because it plays on the fear. You have it shows the absurdity of all these people taking this thing seriously, and the fear and paranoia was funny to me. And I love the scene. I also love the scene at the end where the Ned Beatty's character at the house, when he's going to shoot at the submarine, when he starts saying he's going over, Dan Aykroyd told him about the gun, never do this, never do that, never do this. So he's going back over to do it, and he's repeating, never do this, never do that, and never to start shooting at the submarine. So I love all the zane. I do love the zaniness of it. I thought the dance scene is one of my favorite things in any movie that I've ever seen. Period. I do love the dance scene.
Oh, the dance
part, because I thought the dance scene was fantastic. With everything. But there are little things. Belushi was like one of the things that was the only one that was really over the top, but I found him amusing too. But I loved Tim Matheson's character, trying to do everything just to get the girl, just basically he's just trying to get laid. And so that's it. And it was very amusing to me, because anyone would be doing the same situation, doing the same thing. She loves planes, I got to get her into a plane. And this thing, and I loved Robert Stack too, like the crying during Dumbo, and he could not care less about anything else going on. He was just annoyed that his movie was getting ruined. So it was like,
right.
So, yeah, I did love all these intersecting little parts of it, and just showing how everyone, the paranoia built to such a level that people were going out of their minds doing the most ludicrous things, but to them, it's taking it seriously. So I don't think it's pure slapstick because of that, because you have the characters. I don't think, that's why I said I disagree with the parts that we're saying that they're all over the top. It's just in their minds, this is serious. In their minds, we're fighting Japanese, we're doing the honorable thing, we're going to, make the stand here. And you have three dummies, counting the regular dummy, on a Ferris wheel, and that's their idea. We need a lookout. These three people are going to fight off the Japanese, basically the Japanese invasion. Two guys and a dummy on a Ferris wheel. So I love the absurdity of a lot of the things where the characters, to them, it's taking it seriously, and to them, it's important. So that I do find amusing always. And like I said, it came out 40 years ago. I've probably seen it at least 20 times.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, that's impressive. Let me ask you this though. So I'm not ruling out that I'm just, perhaps I'm simple-minded. But when you have 8 separate plots, storylines, I don't feel like in order for me to laugh and get it, I need to be a little bit vested. I need to be, it needs to be fleshed out a little bit or something, each and everything. But it was so spread out in all these different stories that when something that was, intentionally supposed to be funny, I wasn't on board because I was partitioned.
I could see that. I do see that with all the things, but to me, like, I grew up on these type of movies. These, like, besides the Doctor Strangelove, I mentioned before, I love It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and you have all the different characters and all things going through the same. And even though that's one storyline too, but you're just following different characters, I do love all the absurdity. And Mad, 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 Mad World to me is like, it's so stupid, a lot of things, but I love the movie because it's just, that to me is like very slapsticky. I still love the movie. And I showed it to my kids. They couldn't have hated it more. Could not have hated that movie more. but I grew up on these type of movies where we're following a lot of different characters. And I don't have to get in. It's not that type of movie to me that I have to get so growing invested that I'm caring. I'm just there to enjoy and laugh. I'm
not saying like, I need to care. It's just that I don't know, maybe something could be funnier if I were following along closer to that storyline, because there's just so many stories. It's so all over the place. By the way, this is one thing I read that I thought was funny. You want to know who didn't like the movie? John Belushi. This is what one writer said, that maybe this is just a legend, but I think it's funny whether it's true or not. He had a T-shirt that said Steven Spielberg, 1946 to 1941.
I saw that. I did see that.
And it's a funny idea whether it's true or not, but he did come out publicly and say that he was disappointed. He was doing Bluto. What was his character from Animal House? Bluto. He said it was Bluto in an airplane. Like, he wasn't happy with, but that's a little bit. That could be, some of it could be on him. But
I also read that Belushi probably didn't remember half the time that he was on this.
Oh, yeah, of course. And he got hurt shooting this, by the way. Somebody landed on him and he had to, someone jumped off a wing or something, and he was standing on below the plane, and he got like a neck injury or something like that, which, is always a great excuse for John to, numb himself up a little bit.
But no, I know that I'm in the minority on people like that. I do belong to the Facebook 1941 group, so when it comes out, but I know that
there is one. Okay.
No, but this is something a few of my friends really love this movie as well, and we discuss it. Like I said, I will always die on this hill defending 1941.
Good.
It. But I do know that I'm in the minority on it.
Right. Okay. I mean, the thing, I was just sitting here thinking, and I can't get rid of my critical hat sometimes, So I'm going to beat this dead horse, just one more time before I'm done. But the thing is, and I didn't quite confirm this, because there never was in history an actual Japanese submarine that was off the coast of California, was there?
You know what? There was an attack at an oil rig on an oil rig in Santa Barbara in, I can't remember the year, but it wasn't too far off. But this story never happened. This was based on, false hysteria.
Yeah. Well, see,
There were German submarines off the East Coast that they kept from the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I think now looking at this as a whole, you can't exactly elevate the absurdity of the paranoia if there actually is a Japanese submarine off the coast of Los Angeles. So the fact that the story contains a Japanese submarine that's going to attack the West Coast, now it's not hysteria. This is something they actually have to deal with. It's a real thing as opposed to an imagined thing. And I think it would have, could potentially, that could be the linchpin here. If it was something else like a weather balloon or, a abandoned fishing boat or something like that, that they just bomb the heck out of, something that isn't what it is. And yet all of a sudden, all of that craziness gets stirred up over nothing,
right.
then you kind of, you're pulling me into it. Because again, going back to Dr. Strangelove, the whole, not the doomsday device was a real thing, but the mutual, the B-52s and the nuclear weapons, with both between Russia and the United States, that was a real thing. And then you have the bureaucrats making these absurd decisions with the real potential to destroy the entire planet. So anyway, I'm just saying that's my last thing. That doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the absurdity of all the other craziness that was going on. Because I mean,
so you're saying if it's real, we can or can't laugh at it, or if it's fake, we can or can't laugh at it.
Oh, either one. My point is, with 1941. Playing up the war nerves angle doesn't make sense because there's actually a submarine there. We weren't just shooting at each other and beating each other.
I see what now I get. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Eliminate that from the story. Get rid of that whole thing completely, and bring in, like you said, whether it was a weather balloon or not, whatever started it, and it just like a domino. It crazy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If all the hysteria happened because somebody's torn raft was hovering 8 feet under the surface and everyone thought it was a submarine or whatever, then there's your comedy maybe or something like that. That's a stupid idea, but I know what you're saying. If it's really it was real though. It wasn't the movie. The movie within the movie, there's a threat, as opposed to in real life in 42, everyone went bonkers over something that was never really a threat anyway. And that's really where they maybe could have gone.
That's just, I'm saying, you could have done all the same stuff and it was based on absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden now I'm along for the ride. I think that's where I fell off because of the way it started. And it had, I don't know. It just had to open with Spielberg poking fun at his own movie, Jaws. I mean, it just was right out of the beginning of Jaws.
I did not dislike that part at all. In fact, if you go back to that time and you're like, oh, this guy, Spielberg, who almost got fired many times on Jaws, thank God he didn't. And that film was so fantastic. And then Close Encounters. And then what's he going to do? Oh, he's doing a comedy. Seems like he's gold. Whatever he does, whatever he touches is just going to be amazing. Yeah. And then it opens with a wink, wink to Jaws. I'm thinking good stuff. And then the movie kept going. This is really what happened. God, you know what? I got to tell you. So, and I have to check myself in because when I was a child actor, I may have bored you guys with this on when I did your show. So I had met with Steven Spielberg a few times when I was a youngster, and he was going to do a movie called After School. That was the running title or working title. And he saw me. I don't know how it happened, but I got requested to go to Amblin, Entertainment and meet with him. I met with him 3 times. And he would just ask me. I never read. He just said, "Yeah, I've seen you." He said, "Moosie, you're good. I love whatever." And you like me. And I was a kid, whenever, maybe about 15. I was about 15 years old the last time I met with him. So that's how long ago it was. So, but he wanted to make this movie called After School. And he wanted me in it. And he would ask me, like, "Well, what pranks do you and your friends pull in the neighborhood?" And I would tell him, you tie the trash cans to the bumpers of the car, the neighbor you don't like, and they drive off in the morning, ha. And I was going to do this film, and it got shelved for 1941. And I never ended up working with Steven Spielberg.
The real reason for the animosity comes out. So that's
I know this is like in court. It's like, aha,
right.
You're a disgruntled ex.
Exactly.
No, but I do have to tell myself to put that aside, but it really, I do put it aside. Are you kidding me? And I like, who the hell am I? Steven Spielberg, go make whatever you, Steven Spielberg, want to make.
This is a hostile.
So he did this film instead, and he was going to come back to it, but then he consolidated the young actors into E.T. And I wasn't the right age for any of those characters at that time, and so I missed out. And I was at years after I got into the Directors Guild, I was at it was the year that he was nominated for Amistad, and I actually got to say hello to Mr. Spielberg, and I'm grown up now or whatever. And he goes, Mr. Spielberg, he was talking to Peter Fonda, and when they were done, my girlfriend and I were standing there, and at the time I was, "Mr. Spielberg, hi. When I was young, we made." He goes, "Moosie," and he remembered my name because I have a ridiculous name, and I should be suing my parents who are no longer alive. But
I've said this to you before. You had the best name, the best name for a kid actor in Hollywood. Period. It's like
it's all subjective, just like this entire conversation. Anyway, let me just wrap that up. I'm making sure that my review, which is less than stellar for 1941, is not influenced by that experience. I promise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we consider we'll take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm. So what happened there? Like, because I always go back. I'm trying to make excuses for these major Hollywood figures, Zemeckis and Spielberg and all that, and the cast. So I know that it worked for some people, obviously, but Ike, what do you think? Do you think they were trying to be Airplane, but like shot with better equipment and bigger actors?
I don't know. I can't figure that out.
I think they were going for a Dr. Strangelove feel. I do think.
Oh yeah, that makes.
Well, I mean, when you're basically, when you take Slim Pickens and you recreate his character in an entire scene from Dr. Strangelove, then I kind of tend to think that Jonathan is right. But again, that's always like those are it's thin ice and dicey water. How many more? Let's see, wet. Analogies can I make here?
Right.
When you're trying to be, is it a comedy or a dark comedy? See,
right.
Dr. Strangelove is not farcical. It is, again, almost even every performance in Dr. Strangelove is played very straight. And so that's what makes it so chilling, because again, it's absurd. So I don't know. See, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know comedy. I only know what I react to. Right. And
right.
If I didn't find it funny, I think that's the thing. You either laugh or you don't. Tickles your funny bone or you don't. Some things tickle some people and don't tickle other people. And, I don't know what they were going for, but if you look at Spielberg movies, like I said, the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a scene right out of 1941. Right, the whole opening scene is could have been that same scene.
Well, I
And
think that, yeah.
but
I
I
think
mean,
that movie is his 1941 less zany, more, more
Yeah.
serious, more action of film.
Yeah.
And towards the end there in 1941, there's a scene of, I think it's a tank coming through a big like paint warehouse with all paint cans and somebody running, and it's Indiana Jones with the ball coming
Yeah.
after him. He
Yeah.
keeps coming and it keeps getting closer and closer, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's that shot.
Yeah.
Which he
Yeah,
does so well, I mean,
his fingerprints are all over it, and as well it should be,
yeah.
But repeating myself, what I enjoyed the most about it is really the production value, and the thing I think I want to say to our audience, if they haven't seen it and they're fans of analog films, that's what we're going to call it. It's an analog movie, right? Everything in it had to be handmade and shot in a practical way, other than the few visual effects, where there was a green screen shot that you can kind of tell because it shows its age. But I mean, all the stuff in the middle of Hollywood, with the P-40 Warhawk plane and the other plane that the Tim Matheson's flying. I don't know what kind of plane that was, but down the middle of the street, and rolling, and all those buildings, and that stuff excites me, because if there was one career that I could have had as an adult that I would have loved to have done over anything else, was be a model builder for Hollywood, because I just loved seeing those big models, and I just has always excited me. So seeing it for me, okay, other than, heck, you just might be as twisted as Jonathan and find it funny, so it's worth a shot as far as that goes, but it's also just worth seeing to see quite possibly the worst Steven Spielberg movie ever made.
Perhaps. I mean, I can't really think of one that in my opinion comes close to they say, I guess, Terminal, is that the one with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, that wasn't great. It wasn't like Spielberg-esque.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I really liked I know it's like sacrilegious to like the West Side Story remake, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty, and I thought everybody was good in it.
That's a whole other topic of a conversation for a different podcast. Because
right now, I'm just talking about Spielberg himself. Like I think he's got so much to give still. Just yeah. Maybe though, but he probably won't. Based on interviews I've read, he probably won't do a farcical comedy again.
That's right.
Yeah, Meatballs 4. Or, do you know Ivan Reitman was? Is that who? I think was slotted to do 1941 and was busy doing some other comedy.
Huh.
And so that's how Spielberg slipped into 1941.
Wow.
Wait, am I right about that? Ivan Reitman? No.
Yes, I believe I read that as well.
Yeah, okay. I get them mixed up. But give me Night Shift, which is an underrated, Henry Winkler, and give me something, Michael Keaton, give me that. That's my kind of comedy. But you know what? I might, I'll eat chocolate. You like strawberry, and whatever. It's like no one's right or wrong. But I think I have seen 1941 for the last time. Unless they say it gets better, keep watching it.
I will say that I have not seen it for the last time, but
right. Well, good for you. I did a movie that I don't really prefer, like this. So this kind of humor wasn't quite like this. Oddly enough, the same DP as 1941 did the two films I did. William A. Fraker. I did a movie called Hollywood Nights. Now that was like, very like, toilet humor, boobs, and like adolescent kind of humor, Even when I was even when I was really young, I'm like, but people quote lines to me sometimes, they love it. Like it's a cult kind of comedy, but I've never really, and I've always known that doesn't make me right. It just makes me not like this, but I like this over here, and that's what I love about the whole.
Now, Hollywood Nights is a good forgotten film segment to do. That's a good one to tackle one day.
Well, I think it's forgotten because the two movies I did with that same director couldn't really get much release on DVDs and stuff like that because of all the music they put into it. Like the music rights just tied it all up, and it would be too expensive to put on HBO or wherever. So, yeah.
Well,
but,
man,
unless you two have more panning to do, I think.
Ike, are you turning around on this, or you're going to hold your ground?
No, I'm holding my ground.
And I'm holding my ground.
All right, I'm going to give 1941 from 1 to 10. I'm going to give it a 4, and I would have gone at a 3, given it a 3, but it looked beautiful, and it's staged well, and the actors were good. I give it a 4.
I'll agree with you on that, but we already know what Jonathan's going to say. So perhaps he can wrap this show up and we can move on.
Right on.
Well, I do. If we're going to go rating, I don't think we've done rating before, but if we're going to go rating, I do. This is my opinion. For me, I'm giving it a 7. So I enjoy it.
Oh, that's
I
thought.
I had you as an 8 or a 9.
No,
yeah, me
look,
too.
I know its limitations, but I do enjoy it. I think there's a lot to like in there. I even mentioned the Japanese crew, the submarine crew, how thrilled that they are that they've struck a blow to Americans by knocking off the Ferris wheel.
Yeah,
so excited.
That was a big deal. Yeah.
Right. So, but again, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Tell us if you liked it, didn't like it. Tell me why I'm right and why they're wrong, and just things like that. But again, thanks for watching. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. Special thanks to Moosie Drier, and please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.